It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Maienschein from Sacramento, by the way. He is a member of the California State Assembly. And when we think about the border, so often we think about kids wanting to come in. Often, though, the border is used as a place to traffic humans. The southern border, the border in the Pacific Ocean, you have boats coming in, and you have been an advocate for the elimination of human trafficking for quite some time.
Absolutely. This is a really important issue to me, and you're exactly right, Brad. You look at, we are a border state, and so there are, unfortunately, a number of people who are using that to their advantage to bring young women in here to use as in sex trafficking.
Right.
And it's horrible anyway, but it's particularly horrible when these are really young girls.
And what's interesting to me is, we talk about the Johns, and it's, becomes kind of a joke at a certain level, the Johns, but it's not a joke. And the Johns are often receiving sentences that are just not commensurate with their action, especially when you're talking about minors being the, quote, prostitutes. And I have to think, these Johns know what they're targeting. I mean, they're looking for young girls.
They're asking for them.
Right.
And you want to talk about a particularly sickening crime.
Right.
Somebody who is actually asking for an underage girl as a prostitute. And it does obviously fuel this demand to bring more and more girls here who are underage, who have this horrible, horrible life here, and then trying to build the pieces back together down the road after they've been through this just absolutely terrible, horrifying lifestyle. It's awful.
So tell us about your bill 1791. I know it's gaining steam. What would this bill do?
Yeah. So what it'll do is it's a significant step towards increasing the penalties for the Johns. For it'll double the penalty for people who solicit minors for sex, for prostitution. It'll make sure that these people get more punishment, and hopefully one of the goals is not only to punish the people who are committing these crimes and the wrongdoing, but also to try to decrease the demand for the trafficking of these young girls into California.
What's amazing to me, sir, is that in doubling the sentence, you go from 6 months to 12 months. I know. I would have thought you'd go from 5 years to 10 years.
Yeah. Or how about 100 years to 200 years?
Exactly. We're the father of daughters, so
exactly.
Come on.
Exactly.
What's going on here? I mean, look, I know there's a whole discussion about prostitution and whether we should be focused on that generally, but this is dealing with a minor. This is not adults.
And you've hit on that main point, which I agree with. I mean, look, I would like to say, as you and I have talked about our daughters many times, I would like to see the penalty to be 200 years. That would be great with me. But this is what we could get now. It's a significant increase because it doubles it. And we'll continue working on it, and we'll look to double it again next year and see what else we can do to make this. The penalty for this needs to be severe because this crime is just unspeakable.
But that being said, I know that the governor and even your colleagues, Democrat and Republican, have been very nervous about creating increased penalties for any crime only because of prison overcrowding. And as I understand it, the governor had refused to sign any legislation that would have increased penalties. It may have changed since we've seen a turn in the economy and the prison population drop. Am I right there? Or?
Well, I think this is one of the unfortunate side effects of this prison overcrowding issue. I mean, clearly California does need more prisons. I mean,
we can talk about that.
Yeah, there needs to be other things too. But clearly, to say there's not enough prison space to take out hardened criminals doing terrible things really is a poor excuse.
So do we anticipate that this bill will be seen favorably by the governor?
I do believe it will be. I do believe the governor will sign it. I do think this crime is heinous. And I do think the governor will see it that way.
And let's talk more about it when we come back. For our viewers on HLN, we thank you so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back with Assemblyman Maienschein. So one of the reasons why the governor may see and look at it favorably is because it does double the sentence from 6 months to 12 months, which means it's still a crime that would be served in a county jail. So it wouldn't go to the prison, and so it wouldn't impact the prison population. Am I right?
You are right. And what's, from our standpoint, from the way I look at it is, look, I just want these people out of the population. We want them in prison. Yes, I would love to see it be a lot longer. But again, we'll get them out of circulation. We'll start letting these Johns know that there is a penalty for their actions, as opposed to a simple slap on the wrist. This isn't as much as we'd like, but I'd rather take half a loaf now and try to go back and get the full loaf.
Are you or any of your colleagues looking at the Janes, meaning the young women, the prostitutes themselves? Because there has been some suggestion that slapping these 14-year-old girls with a prostitution charge, it's not effective.
Well, and I think too, in this instance, these girls are victims.
Right.
I mean, these aren't people who are out there feeding a drug habit.
Right.
These are people who are really being kidnapped. And the whole definition, I mean, of being a minor, we don't let minors sign contracts. Right. We don't let minors vote. There's a lot of things we don't as a society let minors do. To let them contract for sex is something that obviously it isn't something that we've allowed as society, nor should we. And these girls are not people who are like entering into a business transaction. They're victims.
Right, but some DAs are still prosecuting. I know in LA County, as an example, Jackie Lacey, who's the elected district attorney, is looking to change the charging scheme for these young women. Is that something the state can look at?
Yeah, I think it's something the state should look at, because I do think, to take people who are themselves victims and then impose a criminal penalty on them. And really, ultimately, what we're getting at here is we really need to look at the demand side of this. Is what's fueling bringing these young girls over the border into California is the demand by the Johns to do what you exactly said earlier, solicit known minors for prostitution.
My family, about 4 or 5 years ago, adopted 2 cats from a local shelter. My wife would rather be with the cats than with me, which is a whole other conversation. But my point is in a lot of ways we saved the cats, but for AB 1810, which was signed, those cats may have not made it.
Right, you're right.
Tell us about AB 1810, which was signed.
This was something that, exactly, it was signed by the government. It was important to me because it helped to make sure that these animals aren't destroyed, although it doesn't help your personal situation, maybe your personal situation worse. But it does make, I think it's something that's good for California. I think it's good clearly for these animals, because what we did was the current law was such that if these animals were abandoned in certain places like a pet store or a place where they would go to get a trim or to get their get washed, and they would if they were abandoned there, they were required to be destroyed within 24 days.
Required. The law said shall. Right.
Even if they could have been adopted. And so what my law does is it changes it. So it says it changes essentially changes the shall to may. So where these animals can be adopted, can find a home, like your home. So maybe we'll have some cats for you later, but we can talk later about that. But they will then be able to be adopted. They won't have to be destroyed. This really will save tens of thousands of pets from being destroyed.
I want to go a little inside baseball on this. How did you come up with this? Who would know that the shall and the may and how did this come to you?
Well, I am a lover of animals.
Fair enough.
And this is something that's important to me. So we started kind of looking at some things that we could do to help.
But did someone honestly bring the issue to you? I'm always amazed at how legislators come up with legislation. Like, where did you learn about this? I mean, oftentimes you are approached. Do you remember? Maybe you don't remember.
I do actually remember. In this case, it was actually my brother who came to me, and he brought it up to me. And so
he was aware of the
this.
shall and may.
Yeah, and so he said, you should take a look at this and see what you could do. And he's a big lover of animals too. So we did take a look at it.
And he was right.
And he was right.
Despite the fact he's your brother.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't believe I'm saying my brother's right, but my brother's right.
And so then what happened?
And so then once we did look at it, I said, this is something that I think we could change. I think it's something we could do to make things better for obviously the lives of these animals and families who get a chance to adopt these animals.
Yeah. So was it a difficult process to kind of march through? Because, I mean, to me, it's a miracle any legislation makes it out of any committee onto the floor and signed by the governor.
It's always difficult.
Right.
I mean, it's always difficult because just the nature of this business and this process is that it is difficult.
Right.
But having said that, if you work hard and try to get it through,
How many bills have you got signed so far?
Well, so far we've had 6 this year.
Come on.
Yeah.
And you're a Republican member of the legislature. You got 6
bills?
bills?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I was going to say, that's a pretty good record.
Yeah, exactly.
His name is Brian Maienschein. He is a member of the California State Assembly representing beautiful San Diego and San Diego County. I'm Brad Pomerance, and it's California Edition.